to Mark Archery with a really fantastic opportunity today to talk to the Michigan Longbow Association. Before I get too deep into it, could we just introduce ourselves with our name and position in the organization, and we'll start there.
Sure. Nick View, past president, current webmaster, been the webmaster for a long time, and going to be taking the Stick Talk editor on pretty soon. So, Johnny?
John Buchine has been immediate past president, and that's pretty much it.
Floyd Wells, life member.
Don Grice, I'm the current president for Michigan Longbow Association. This will be going on my 4th year if I survive the election.
4 more years. Great. So I want to start just because it's kind of funny to me, and also I think it's reflective of just like the level of detail that we're operating on. So when I was reaching out to you guys, I asked, just because I've shot longbow my whole life, and I've recently become infatuated with short bows, and so I was just curious if it was all right if I brought a short bow, and the response that I got for it really tickled me in a lot of ways, so I just want to read that.
Oh no!
So Floyd says, it is a longbow event. No recurves or compounds are allowed. Since we are a 401c3 for the preservation of the longbow, we are pretty much bound by law to follow the rules. The bow criteria is loosely defined by the simple principle that the string comes directly off the string nocks without touching the limb. Material, weight, and length are not a part of the equation. Short or long does not matter, but the string cannot touch the belly of your bow. Michigan is a wonderful state for traditional archery. Shoots like the Compton Rendezvous, Pine River Stick Bow Shoot, Harrison MTV in Williamsburg, I can't even pronounce this one, Jackson and Lapeer all promote our traditional archery heritage, but the MLA's 2 main events are not part of the traditional archery circuit. They are indeed special. The GLLI and the Spring Shoot are in celebration of the longbow. Many have been confused and sometimes disappointed because they are not allowed to shoot their bows with the curvy limbs. You can't display your Mustang in a Chevy show. It's just not allowed. While exceptions are made for children, there are now loaner bows that they can use.
Now you know why Floyd's here.
That's all a lie.
There it is.
We're a 501c3, not a 401c3.
Did I say 4?
I didn't know about 401.
I might have misread it, but I just really enjoy that because it's this combination of diplomatic sort of rhetoric. He's trying to state like firm boundaries, but he's not trying to scare me off, and just I really I thought that was a fun way to start out.
So it sums up Bub in a nutshell.
Yeah, I was just going to say that was.
And let me add to that, if someone does want to come to one of our events, we do have loaner equipment. So if you're typically a recurve shooter, you're welcome to come in and we'll set you up and get you out shooting longbows.
And it's not just the club, the members. Most of us bring 1, 2, 7, 10 bows and in a plethora of weights, and are willing to, help pass it along and get people out there shooting.
Plus, they do make better youth bows than they used to, but we do allow youth to shoot recurves up to the age of 16, just because you got to get it gives you a little bit more speed and oomph to it for some of those slower pounded bows.
But remember, so many of the kids got started by dad's hand-me-downs.
Yep.
And that's all you had, right?
Yep.
But the bowyers today recognize the influx of youth coming into the sport, and so they're making youth bows. And really that's a rule that we've always had that kind of has outlived its usefulness, because there's some really great kids bows out there.
It wouldn't be too far out of mind to have that rule changed in a few years. You don't have to deal with.
Really, you just get a reflex deflex or a hybrid now. If you really, I mean,
absolutely.
it's the same thing.
And they're just as fast, if not faster, actually.
Yep, they are. I agree.
Well, in keeping with that sentiment, I just wanted to get everyone's personal sort of pitch on, in the year 2025, why longbows?
simplicity. Simplicity breeds romance and mysticism and everything that you can do. And today we're all attached to a supercomputer, and this is one of those few things that you can back up and you can simplify and you can just enjoy the experience of an arrow flying, and you don't need your phone. I mean, unless you want to take a picture of it or a video, which is nothing wrong with that. But for the most part, you come here, you camp, you get away, and it's just you and the bow and the arrow and the target, and that's it. And I think people are missing that these days. They want something simple.
For me, it's the challenge, and I'm kind of the odd duck out of the group. Not,
Well,
pretty
you're
much,
not.
besides that, but
I
I shoot the ASLs for the most part, which is basically your straight limb longbow, 66 to 68 inches long, and there's lessons to learn with maneuverability in the woods and limb clearances, and I love the simple design of it, but it's also the other part of it. You know, we don't just love archery, but we also love hunting with our equipment, and there's a level of challenge that comes up that, you know, that we were talking about turkey hunting earlier. I shot a mess of turkeys with a shotgun, and at some point Nick and I were talking, and he's like, well, that 15-minute season was pretty quick. Now what are you going to do? And so now it's been a 7-year season trying to chase one with a longbow and doing it a tough manner, and it makes things more enjoyable. You pay attention more to your surroundings. You take more in the environment, and it's hard to put an exact finger on it and a definition to it, but there's just this soul to it that's awesome. So,
Mythology.
yeah.
Longbows.
Your turn.
Why longbows?
Nothing
out of all the bows,
Nothing out of you two at the end there.
why are they still relevant?
Sometimes when we look for the answers to all things, he once said, the joy of doing disappears. It's better to be a bit surprised than to have pleasure for it. Catching trout is like pleasing a woman. Once you've pleased her, you never ask why. You just remember what you did.
Wow.
And I read that in an outdoor magazine 40 years ago, and I've never forgotten that quote. Because if you sit around the campfire and people talk about their equipment, well, they're going to load up to make the carbon arrow flexible. They got to have weight forward, or hey, I got this new string. It's because they haven't had enough experiences. That's all they can talk about is their equipment. The simplicity that we want, that we're not tinkering, we're not aggravated, we're not worried about a sight coming loose or the pulley not functioning like it should.
Cam timing.
The cam timing, you know, you pick up a bow, you string it, you stick your thumb up there and check the brace height, you put a knock on the stupid thing, and you go fling cedar around the woods. And it can't get any simpler. It's just fun to do. And John loves his ASLs, the straight limbed bow. They're fantastic to shoot. And if you really want to get into it, start carving them out of Osage.
Yep.
And shooting. They're fun to do. It's just a joy to do. It rears its ugly head in the face of technology. And it's something you can't ignore if you're an outdoorsman. It's just fun. And what we do in this venue has nothing to do with a bow. We were sitting around the campfire picking a guitar, you know. Mitch brought a little amplifier, little tiny amplifier. He's playing his Fender Electric.
Oh, we're amplified.
You know, and we were having a great
Wow,
time.
that's not trad.
It's not plugged in.
That's not unplugged.
What we're doing here has nothing to do with bow and arrow. What we'll do tonight at the dinner has nothing to do with the bow and arrow. It's about people. Traditional archery is about people. It's not about sticks and strings and arrows. It's about people. And the people that choose to do it come apart from the rat race and just say, hey, this is what we're going to do this week or this weekend, and it becomes a lifestyle. It's not just a shoot here or a shoot there or chasing turkeys, or it becomes a lifestyle.
And you know, gear nerdery is allowed. We're not saying that it's not, because we got some engineers in this organization who love to get their tuning setups, man. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but as long as you're not losing sight of what you're trying to do.
Right. It seems like the general idea is that just by virtue of the design and it longbow being the first style of bow that was ever used by primitive people, it even though short bows and recurves are definitely fall into traditional archery, they don't have all the fancy gizmos, but it's harder to construct a recurve bow or a composite bow or something like that. A stick bow, it's just right there. Anyone could technically do it for survival.
Well, and short bows. I mean, Native Americans were running what, 56 inch? Some of the Plains Indians, 50.
Some of them 36.
Yeah.
They had to laminate.
And I don't necessarily mean short bows. You know, it really doesn't matter. It's a design thing. It really doesn't matter if it's a short bow or a long bow, as long as
at this point in history, it's all been done with longbows, recurves. Everything's been done. I mean, it's all been done. So there's nothing being reinvented. You know, so it's just back
resurrected,
to the basics.
but not necessarily reinvented.
You know, reed arrows are the original.
I'm sorry, I got off on a tangent.
I think it's his turn to weigh in.
They covered it pretty well. I think, you know, for me, it's the simplicity, the durability. I mean, they're just a rugged bow. You know, you're dragging this thing through the woods hunting, and you know, I get mine snagged in trees and stuff, and I just pull away at it, and I don't even give it a second thought. And again, you know, they touched on the history. You know, it's where we all started as archers, and the simplicity of it's just you and your bow. You know, there's no other. If you're having a bad day, it's you, right? And you just need to pay attention and understand that you can't blame it on technology, and you can't blame it on gizmos. It's just, you know, you need to straighten up and shoot straight. So,
and I'm really glad you said that, because I'm the range master for Tomahawk Archers, and I took a group out and showed them the steps of instinctive shooting. And a guy and his son were ahead of us, and they were shooting compounds. And Dad walked up there and he put it right in the kill, and then the kid walked up there and he put it right in. And they had this really fancy bow that had all kinds of bells and whistles on it, and they put it right where it needed to be. I stepped up there with a stick and a cedar arrow, and I put it in the bullseye, you know, right in the kill. And I turned to the people and the group that I had, and I said, they were great shots. They made a great shot, but that had a lot to do with the technology that they were carrying. Okay, not them as much as their technology. Whereas what I just did had to do with my ability with a stick and string, not necessarily just the weapon itself. And that's huge in what we do.
It seemed to me like, with how much psychology plays into archery, your own, like, battling yourself, and I just feel like, I mean, first of all, I have all the respect in the world for people who shoot compound. I do feel like it's something entirely different categorically, but like, outside of the difficulty, it's also a matter of anxiety. So, like, for me, there's plenty of work to do on the psychological spectrum in terms of, like, getting your confidence and your conviction right about your whole shot sequence and like following through and everything. I can't imagine how much more obstacles to just get it, like removing all the other chatter, if you're considering every single part is another variable with layers of complexity that are having significant impacts, and like if you're having any kind of trouble, I don't know, it just seems all necessary to me.
You know, a target shooter goes through 18 steps before he uses the arrow. I don't want to do that. That's one of those things that just clouds your head.
Right.
I want to be able to look at an object and put an arrow there.
That's the beauty of it, is you can make it as complex as you want to, or as simple as you want to. You can, I can get in my own head. You know, it doesn't take much. There's a lot of room in there, but
And every batter needs to learn how to hit too. You got to learn their fundamentals.
Yep.
After a while, you get that programmed, or maybe throwing a baseball into a glove, you got to get that programmed. Once it's programmed, you can do it. You can step outside yourself, but there is a there's a period of mechanics that you got to get down in muscle memory and learn what you're doing. And then after that, try not to get caught up in it.
Yeah, and I think we need to move people away from these sort of quick fixes and quick solutions. You know,
Easy
a
button.
big part of what we do is the journey. And you know, anything that you're interested in, the discipline shouldn't be something you can master in a weekend. You know, by just making a few tweaks here or there. It's a long process. You invest a lot into it, and that's what, for me, makes it rewarding. You know, when you finally go out and you're putting things exactly where you want them to be.
And it changes over time.
Absolutely.
It'll change over the next 10 minutes. That's the problem.
it adds spice to that. You know, everybody's got that born on date and the dead on date. It adds to that dash in between.
Absolutely.
The dash is the shortest part of that in physical writing, but it's the biggest part of what you got going on. So
I would like to give everyone a brief opportunity to just touch on how they got into into archery in general, what age, what started it.
I'll try. I wrote a book on this. It's called Life in Longbows. You can buy it for $15.99 on Amazon.
Two books, didn't you?
Two books on this. Yeah. Okay, so what happened with me is, like, I poked around with it. My uncle gave me some kind of a bare, simple compound when I was a kid to play with, and I'd walk around and just shoot whatever I could find out of it. And then I always liked it. And then years later, I kind of got out of it. I never really got, did anything with it. And then I was looking for a release one day, and I was reading a Green Arrow comic book. And in the Green Arrow comic book, the hero met Howard Hill. And I looked up Howard Hill. Who's Howard Hill? He's one of the greatest archers that ever lived, Longbow. And I was intrigued, and I looked for people who did it, and there was a big group of them in Michigan. So I started, I went out and I bought a bow. I started with a recurve, and I was hooked. I shot every day, dozens of arrows every day, till my hands bled almost. And then I decided as soon as I started that I wasn't going to hunt. And then before I knew it, 2 months later, I started hunting, and I discovered hunting at 27 years old. Like, I never hunted in my life. And the rest is history. I just got further and further down the path.
Green Arrow.
Green Arrow. Never know.
My journey started with the old fiberglass Shakespeare recurves. Shakespeare was a Michigan-based archery company. That's one of the things with Michigan, is that traditional archery is deeply rooted in this state. And my brother and I, my mom and dad used to love the old Errol Flynn Robin Hood movie. Used to love watching that. I still do. But and then knowing about Howard Hill and what he did, some of the stories you hear about the shooting, when he was shooting at the guys coming through the gate, and they had a big block of oak on their chest, and he was actually physically shooting at them back then.
Running.
And
riding a horse.
And just amazing stuff like that. And went into the wheel route for a minute, and got to talking to Nick one day, and all of a sudden I was whittling bows out of osage and mulberry and hickory, and that was it. All the technology left, and that's where I started my realignment on this path, and went from there. And it's been just an absolute blast. I wouldn't trade it for anything. The people I've met, all the friendships. It's like, these are like family reunions. All these shoots. People you get to see maybe 4 or 5 times a year, and it's a wonderful thing.
I've always shot it. I came out of the room with a bow in my hand, quiver and arrows. I shoot.
You were around back when it started.
Well, yeah,
Back in '83.
yeah,
The association.
yeah. Everybody was going to compounds, but I'd shot longbows and recurves my whole life up until that, and I just found somebody else that was interested in the same thing. It was pretty cool. So I've always done it. But my family were outdoor people. We shot bows, we shot arrows, we shot shotguns, we shot rifles. It was just, I come from a different era. I'm a little bit older, not much.
My journey was similar to the guys on the end there. As a kid, I remember my cousin sort of introducing me to archery, and it was the old fiberglass bows. And we had a long, deep yard when I was growing up, and I remember the enjoyment of just letting that thing rip, and watching that fly through the air. And went from that, moved into compounds, shot compounds for a lot of years. I could never give up control of the string, so even when I was a compound shooter, peep sights and front sights and all that, but I always held the string. I could never give over control to the mechanical devices. I just did not like that feeling. And I always sort of harkened back to those days of the longbow in the backyard, and my son and I had the opportunity to build some bows with a family friend. So we spent some weekends running out of town and gluing and laminating things together, and we built our first ones. And from that day, we shot those bows. I shot my compound one other time, and that's when I had it for sale in a garage sale. And the young man that was interested in purchasing it said, "Hey, can you show me how to shoot it?" And I said, "Sure." I said, "It's been a while, but yeah, let's see what we can do." So I paced off a 20-yard target, and took this compound out of the case. At that point, it had been in there for probably 4 or 5 years, and pulled it up, and flipped through the peep sight, down the sight, and just nailed the target right exactly where you're supposed to go. And he's like, "Oh, that looks pretty simple." And I said, "Yeah, that's how they work, And I've never shot a compound again. Just like I said, just fell in love with the longbow and traditional archery.
Good answer.
Loved it ever since.
So the next question would be, so we've established why longbows, why Michigan for traditional archery? What is it about Michigan that people should know about? Or even if, I imagine there's plenty of people that live here and just, you got archery and you've got Michigan, these two awesome things. Just put them together, it's right there.
We do have a lot of it, that's for sure.
Well, I mean, good golly, Fred Bear, of course, was the big one. But he also helped start. Didn't he help start the MBH, or was that before?
He was
very involved with that. And then, like I said, we had Shakespeare was they didn't just make fishing stuff in Kalamazoo. I think
Glenn St. Charles was even born here.
Yep, Glenn St. Charles was born here, and then which one of the Witchery of Archery guys was actually friends with Fred, and he lived in Michigan for a while. You know what I'm talking about.
Well, I am old, but I'm not quite that old.
Wasn't it like Civil War time?
No. It's in the books. Just remember reading archery history and stuff. And then you've got for years Proline in Hastings. Proline was another archery company based in Hastings, which is where the GLLI is currently held. A lot of broadhead manufacturers, Acme Shaft. I mean, there's just, and you know.
At one time we had 21 world-class bowyers here in the state where you could purchase. In my little area down in the southeast corner of the state, we have 11 archery clubs, all together. That has a shoot every month. You know, you choose 3 or 4 different shoots to go to, 3D shoots outdoors. Michigan is by far and away the hub of traditional archery. Other states, whenever they come to the Great Lakes Invitational or Compton Traditional Bow Hunters Rendezvous, they always say, "Man, I wish we had something like this in our state." Michigan just has a huge history. Of course, a lot of it has to do with Fred Bear's factory being here, you know.
Yeah, Grayling for a while. And that all got started over in the Detroit area too.
Absolutely.
You know, with the automaker.
Absolutely.
So you got innovation, you got innovators, but I mean, look around us. We've got land, we've got woodlands, we've got waterways, we've got hunting, we've got. I mean, we're the epicenter of it. We've got 4 seasons. I mean, there's all kinds of factors in, but when you got the room, you have to have some room to do it. You got to have access, and Michigan's got a lot of access. So I think that was kind of natural.
That's really true. That's very well thought out.
That and the Native American heritage too, with around the lakes, we got a lot of
Tons,
that.
just
Oh.
tons. Absolutely.
6 months among the Indians. That book that Jerry Brum told us.
I
to
have
read.
got it in my camper even now. I found it. And I
That's
made sure it was put in
That
there.
is a fantastic book, and it's what's amazing when you go through and read it is the history. So I live in Plainwell, which is north of Kalamazoo, and the guy that wrote it was he was the editor for the Kalamazoo Gazette back in 1863 when that book was written. And when you read through that, I have physically walked through most of the landmarks or lived among those landmarks that are in there, and it just will blow your mind when you think about it.
What was there before?
What was there before? What the animals that were around? You did not leave in the dark at all.
Wolves
And bears were out.
It was just,
It's a
Tough country.
yeah, but there's
and the Indians were hostile too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there was not a place for the faint of heart.
yeah. You had Chief Noonday, Chief Tecumseh,
Tecumseh was there. Yep.
and Saginaw. Oh, that was my boat. It's all right.
It's tough. It's tough. It's
tough.
durable. Whenever you got wild areas and wild things, archery
Thank you,
just
Denise. makes
sense.
But yeah, it just has so many intangibles that make it what it is. It's made up of all the tiny pieces that make it what it is.
Well, yeah, I think, I mean, without question, one of the big things, a big part of that is this association. And if anyone wants to talk about or boast about what the MLA brings to the state, and like, why should people consider getting involved and coming out to one of these shoots? And I could say a lot about it myself, but if you guys want to take an opportunity to do that.
Sure, I think for one, uniqueness. I mean, we're got to be the biggest longbow organization in the United States. If one of the only longbow-oriented organizations in the United States. But definitely the biggest in Michigan for that. We've been going since 1983. The Great Lakes Longbow Invitational, GLLI, in August, that's one of the biggest events in the state, if not the biggest now, in Compton's even. you know, you're looking at 1,000 plus people that come and just shoot archery at Charlton Park in Hastings, which is
Specific archery gear at that.
specific archery gear. Exactly. You know, we're still going strong. Technology's advancing, but there's still enough of us to gather and have a group and get together. And you see the same people at all these events all throughout the year too. So it's not just our organization. Everybody's in multiple organizations. The diehards are.
And the state's blessed with, as far as you look at other states and what they have for archery organizations, and we have probably the 3 most active organizations between the MLA, the MTB, and MBH. You know, comparing to other states as far as membership and active people that are involved in all this stuff, and that's a big part of why we have so many shoots all year.
And we've used a lot of acronyms that we haven't explained, you know, your ASL, MTB,
Michigan
you know,
Bow Hunters is MBH, Michigan Traditional Bow Hunters is MTB.
Yep.
ASL is an American style longbow for those who don't know. I will add on top of what we were talking about though, I think the other thing is we are so family oriented. This is not, I mean, you do go to some of the other events and there's families there obviously, but we are a collective. You feel like a member of this organization. I've felt that from day one, which is why I love it so much. You meet everybody and their families. You know, it's not a lot of people that just kind of wander in and leave. You got a core. There's always a core.
Yeah. Multiple generations.
That's right. Yep, generational. Yep. And yeah, you see people go, and that's, you know, sad, and but people join too. You get to gain a couple families a year, and
Yep.
yeah,
Absolutely.
not just one archer, 6.
Yeah. Yep. And always feeding the next generation. I mean, well, the kids have dispersed since then, but well, I mean that right there, you got all ages going on. You got grandpa, dad, mom, and kids from teens into their, you know, single digits out here shooting. And it's just a wonderful thing.
I think you hit the nail on the head, and that you embrace people where they're at, you know, and you teach them how to shoot. You share with them ethics, understanding, the conservation. It's a family-oriented program, and people can come here and be safe. At any given time, you can walk by a campfire, and there'll be 40 people, you know, listening to guitar music, telling stories.
Would you like a slice of backstrap?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, Miss Caroline's cooking. All you have to do is wait till it comes off the oven. You know, it's just what we do.
And it's a dwindling thing as time goes on and technology is more pervasive. Those real face-to-face interactions, human to human, it's like the antidote that our country, everyone needs right now.
We were tested. We were tested pretty hard 5 years ago with COVID, and I mean, I remember this place sat empty. You know, that was a hard pill to take, and not knowing what was going to happen, and you look at it now and it's like, what was COVID? You know, what's going on? And it's all back to normal.
The resiliency of human nature.
I was just going to say, it just tells you how hard, especially our friends and family here are. It's that need of human in-person connection.
I tell you what, pre-COVID, we were educating our faces off. I mean, we had 5 or 6 things a year we were doing, going to school, going to, I mean, we were everywhere, educating people. That all didn't come back. We were fortunate to have a teacher in our organization that really fought for us to come do that, and the kids loved it. But, I think what we have done, though, by increasing our bows and equipment, because a lot of this is access. Not everybody's blessed to have the resources and the access to these things. Maybe they can't drive to an event or whatnot, but at least we can provide equipment if they need.
So one of our goals we're really pushing hard. You know, we're concerned about all the time our kids are spending on screens, and we talked a little bit about it at our winter banquet. You know, it's approaching double-digit hours per day that the young people are spending on screens, and you know, they could be out here in the environment doing this kind of stuff. So that's why, as Nick was saying, we're pushing with loaner equipment for people that want to come out and get started. We'll try to get them a mentor. You know, I was out in the woods yesterday with a brand new family, and you know, showing them how to be safe and what things to look for and all of that when they're out in the woods on the 3D courses. We spend a little bit of time with them, you know, and then we get comfortable and say, okay, now let them take their journey forward, you know, on their own as a family. And we're all about that. The MLA membership for a family is $30 a year, and you know, this weekend, for example, you know, the $30 that you would invest on a family membership, no shooting fees this weekend, no camping fees this weekend. We feed you as part of our chili cook-off dinner on Friday night. We feed you with a catered dinner tonight. I mean, you more than make up for that $30 fee. And then the GLLI, as they were talking about, it's a fantastic shoot, very interactive shoot with theme competitions and that sort of thing. I mean, you can come and enjoy that event and never shoot a bow. You can just watch and have a good time watching.
Caroline's family came from Germany for years and years, and they don't know anything about archery, but they had a blast.
This year's our 40th anniversary, so we're going to add an extra day. It's 40th anniversary of that event. The MLA celebrated their 40th a couple years ago, and so we're going to add an extra day. We'll add some, you know, special shoots. We're working on some, you know, fun ideas, and you know, it's just an outstanding weekend. And then as part of that membership, you also get a quarterly magazine, and it's a well-done magazine. That's part of the membership.
Stick Talk.
Stick Talk, yeah.
I've been reading that for a while now.
Your dues pretty much cover that, basically.
Yeah,
That's it.
No. And then we had to throw a winter banquet in there, you know, for when you're getting cabin fever. We have a winter banquet, and we do our game awards and stuff at the winter banquet. So it's a great organization. It really is. I fell in love with it. I was so welcomed. I mean, it's the only reason I'm sitting in the position I'm in currently is because I believe in it, and it's just an outstanding family organization. And you can't find, in my opinion, or you'd be hard pressed to find a more affordable activity for the entire family than traditional archery.
You also get the invaluable resources of membership too, because if you can start by buying a bow off Amazon or whatever you're going to do, but if you don't got anybody to teach you how to shoot it, or somebody it's hard to do and stick with, those first couple months are actually, the first 6 months are super. I mean, they're imperative.
Yeah.
You know, you can.
If you're slapping your forearm,
Right,
I don't know how to correct that alone.
I got bruises everywhere. This isn't fun.
Yeah.
Chicks dig scars, though. I dig
But this is what we have here. That's why every time people contact us through the website all the time. Do you do lessons? Do you come places and give lessons? Like, no, but you should come to this shoot, because you'll find a million people that will do that, probably live by you.
Yep.
So
Before COVID, we were getting the Longbow into the hands of about 2,000 new shooters a year.
Yep.
In our different outreach programs. It's pretty good. That's huge on any level.
I remember the school shoot, the where we'd go to the grade elementary school. We were doing like what, 200 to 300 kids.
We were doing
going
about
through there?
300 kids, because we bring them by class.
by classroom they'd come in, and we did it all. We probably did it 6 hours.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
6.
And we would break it up into different. They'd learn the parts of an arrow and how to crest an arrow. They would learn how to shoot. They would learn how the different facets of a bow. They would learn the different methods of actually shooting. They would learn how to draw. It was all broken up into little
5-minute
pods.
stations.
Yeah.
20 minutes with each class. Is
The
all
whistle
we
would
had.
blow and everybody would shift. And the whistle would blow and everybody would shift.
And these kids, you'd watch them light up. And I mean, they would hand make thank you cards. I still have a whole drawer of thank you cards handmade that they would give us afterwards. It just meant the world to
They were
us kids.
excited.
Well, you got to think about how many kids. Everyone has their own kind of way their brain works, and there's people that like might have trouble sitting still, but they might just be a snapshot archer right off the bat. And I've seen people that have almost no experience on a bow that's like barely even usable, and they just have the gift of accuracy. And to be someone like that, and you know, maybe you're struggling in other things, and be like, oh, I'm good at this. You could do that your whole life,
Yeah,
and get
exactly.
that positive reinforcement.
You wouldn't believe, unless you've seen it, what popping a balloon with a bow and arrow does to a kid.
Yep.
It's the best.
It's unreal.
The simplest form of instant gratification, and it just
One of the things that we do in our shooting venues is we'll shoot clay pigeons, and how many of those kids have taken a
Want
piece?
the clay pigeon?
Yeah.
Or break a CD? We'll put CDs up
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Yep.
Break them. They want the CD.
Kids
Yeah.
love to break things. You know? They just love to do it,
But I mean, and that's just pure simplicity.
and they want to take it home. That's a souvenir for them. You know, I accomplished this. I did this.
You can watch a kid that goes from zero confidence to 100% in minutes.
Yep. It's just that first one.
Well,
Getting that first one.
last year at one of the events we worked, we had that kid that came up afterwards and was hugging everybody. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
he
yeah.
was just hugging everybody because he enjoyed himself so much. Yeah, it was,
That's pretty cool.
it was special.
Well, I wish that, I mean, yeah, obviously, guys, we're still in operation, but where I grew up in Munith and Stockbridge, there were a handful of people that still use traditional bows, but it was like by and large compound shooting and hunters. And fortunately, the guy who made my first bow was very deeply vested in longbows, and but when I would go to the ranges to try and like hang out with peers, you know, I was literally the only person. Even today, in some of the places that I go, you get looks. Sometimes you get people snickering at you, be like, "Oh, here comes Robin Hood," blah blah. And it's crazy when you realize. When I first found out about MLA, I'm like, "Oh my God, there's a whole." These are my people. like you don't feel like an outsider.
But
There's a ton
don't
of
feel
people.
like the Lone Ranger, Tonto. There's all kinds of people out here that feel exactly the same way. It's just they've only been in the program for 1 or 2 years. Wow, we had no idea. We had no idea that all these crazy people were out here.
Or try to explain it to someone who's not in the world, and it's hilarious because they're like, wait, what? What do you do? You go camp and shoot targets.
You have to experience.
Yeah,
it.
it's interesting. Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to touch on, because obviously you could spend your whole life just doing target archery and never get into hunting, and I mean that's what I've done up to this point. I'm curious because I definitely, I'm an animal lover, and when I was a kid, I kind of harbored a stigma against hunters and being like, oh, I could never do that. Like, how could you kill an animal, blah, blah. And I know now, after educating myself and meeting actual hunters, it's such an inversion of that. Like, the amount of spiritual and I was, if anyone wants to talk about, like, the more... Hunting is a very vulnerable thing to do emotionally, and the hunters, they don't take glee in the way that people think they do. I mean, I haven't shot an animal yet, but I know that when I do, it's gonna be tough.
You get both extremes on that, the happiness and the sadness. The happiness for the success, the sadness for what had to take place for that. What you're going to find with traditional bow hunters is that you're probably at the most moral, highest caliber of hunters that in all of hunting, because they work harder, both in practice and setup and woodsmanship and all of that to get their quarry. And you have to be sure of your shot. You have to, that's a big part of it. They work harder for it, so there's more to it, and it's not just it's not a rifle loaded with 5 shells that you can just empty at a heartbeat. There's so much work that goes into being able to take that animal, and there's some remorse for having to, for killing an animal, but the satisfaction in the fact that you're getting some really clean organic meat out of it, and where it came from. It's not packaged. It's not,
I can tell you, I'm kind of in a unique situation because I'm a late onset hunter. I grew up around hunters, but I never hunted. I hated hunting. I didn't like it at all. My uncles all hunted, and I shot that first deer when I was 27 years old. I'd never killed a deer with a firearm, never killed an animal with a firearm, never killed an animal in general. And I broke down completely. I shot that deer. It was all those things just hit me. Just the accomplishment, the pride, the remorse, everything. And it changed everything. It changed me. And then the other thing is, I also, on that same hunt, I actually shot 2 deer and I lost the other one. And that, I'm actually glad that happened, because it's going to happen occasionally. You're going to shoot and you're going to hit an animal and you're not going to recover. It's just going to happen. And the remorse you feel for that, people just get, it means something. We care the most. Hunters care the most about it. And real hunters, not poachers or something like that. Hunters.
There's always bad apples. There's always going to be a bad apple somewhere.
And that's one of the unique things about the MLA is, we're a traditional longbow archery organization that welcomes families. And you do not have to have an interest in hunting. There's a whole activity outside of the hunting world that we all encourage. We just happen to be a group of hunters that are part of that association. And so we think it's important to provide an opportunity for people that may not have an interest or may even be opposed to hunting, a place for them to come and sit down around the campfires and hear the real stories, the real hunting stories on the challenges and what it takes. And when it comes to traditional archery, by any measure, you are giving the animal the most opportunity it has to use its own defenses. You're not, and I have nothing against hunters. I've been a gun hunter. I still occasionally gun hunt, but it's just a different experience, and getting an animal within, that 20-yard range or so, it's not easy. And, as these guys turkey hunting, I was turkey hunting a couple weeks ago, and, you get them to respond and come in, but to do it sort of in a run and gun where you don't have a blind or any of that kind of stuff, the slightest bit of motion, you have that experience of getting them within 40 yards or so, but there's a point where, you got to bring them closer, and if you can't, you're not going to close the deal.
John and I would have tagged out every year the last 6-7 years if we were hunting with a gun.
Yep.
What did Fred Bear say? A bow hunter will learn more about the out of doors in 1 week than a gun hunter will learn in a lifetime. And that's because you have to become a better hunter. We tend to focus on shooting abilities, and I'll venture to say that it's while you have to be adequate with your chosen weapon, you become a much better hunter. You read the animal. You know what, by the body language, what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, what you have to be aware of movement,
when
and
to draw,
and
everything.
Yep. So my average shot on a whitetail is 7 yards. 7 yards. I've had huge bucks come in at 18 yards, and I won't take the shot. Reading the body language, he won't be there when the arrow gets there. It'll be a miss or a wound. And if it's a miss, it's great. If it's a wound, it's not acceptable. You just don't do it. And that's what you learn by being a traditional archer, a bow hunter. Traditional.
I think the most irrefutable thing that I heard is just if you're someone that eats meat, and then, like, I think it's very easy. I can't think of anyone that like is a fan of industrial meat production. But if you look at that alone, even the worst case scenario with a hunter, the amount of reduction in suffering in the animal's life, it got to live its whole life out in the woods, and especially the hunters that are trying to bear in mind like the life cycle and like where that deer is, you know, the alternative is eventually a predator is going to get it, it's going to get eaten alive, or it's going to starve to death or get a disease or something. So if you place a good shot that's you know, has the level of due concern that everyone here that I've ever met, it's like above and beyond the Call of Duty, how serious they take it.
Oh, and make no mistake, they got the advantage. If you're hunting the way we are, they got the advantage.
Absolutely.
We're in their house.
Absolutely.
But you know, to echo on what Don said, though, I think that adds to that uniqueness of the organization. One of the reasons why we've been around as long as we have and done as well as we have and been as consistent as we are is because we don't have hunting in the title.
Exactly.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I mean, people always say, why don't
more
you...
people in the door.
Right.
Exactly.
You know, why aren't you about hunting? We are about hunting, but we're also about bigger than that. We're about the archery.
By the same token, we've had, and still do have, a lot of members that will buy a longbow just so they can participate. They just love what we do.
Yep.
They don't hunt with it. They don't shoot it any other time, but they have to have a longbow to share with us, and they'll go out and buy it just so they can.
I'd be a professional stump shooter for the rest of my life, and I'd be happy.
Yeah, it's fun. Absolutely, roving is fun.
We used to talk about we had a roundtable discussions when they were trying to have us get a little more politically active, and one of the things was that, you know, the fact that we're an archery organization, and the fact that if you were to actually go through the numbers of the membership, it's probably closer to 60% of the people that don't hunt that are members, you know, as far as that goes. So it's wonderful that we can provide something where everybody can get together, and like you said, you don't have to be a hunter to enjoy this stuff. So.
Well, I only got a couple more questions. I know we got a busy day of fun stuff. I guess one that speaks to me is what were your biggest hurdles and breakthroughs in your archery refining of your style, and like what you need to do to be successful in your own mind? Hurdles, breakthroughs.
Man, that's tough. I think for me it's probably that first deer. That first deer was thankfully it was my first season. But my first deer, and actually, you know what, the breakthrough came from when I switched from recurve to longbow, and I did it in 3 months. And the funny thing about that is that when I first started shooting, everybody said, don't get a longbow, because it's too hard. You know, I had this
Whatever you do,
I had this heavy Samick recurve that weighed like 15 pounds, and I was lugging it everywhere, and I got this little stick longbow on from a bowyer, and I got it, and I took it out in the woods for the first time. I'm like, this feels different. Like, this is just different. And you know, then I shot the first deer with it, and I'm like, I'm hooked. That was the biggest breakthrough for me. It was just clean and fast and quiet, all that, and light in the hand.
So there wasn't like a technique thing, it was just switching to longbow and like the way that lit you up.
Yeah, the way it lit me up. And I am, you know, since being a tall guy with a longer draw, the longbow, I went to a 66-inch longbow and at the time, and that was the cast made all the difference. Like, it just felt better. So there's a little bit of that to it too. But the quietness has always been the big thing for me with those. But anyway, John, you go. I go
What's
on forever.
what's the biggest hurdle?
Biggest accomplishment you
Well,
had?
I mean, unless you just...
The biggest hurdle's archery in itself, man. Accomplishment. Just, like I said, I don't know if I'd call it an accomplishment, but just being a part of this, you know, essentially. Hunting wise, I've got a cornucopia of stories that are the almost got ones, and it's pretty comical. But as far as like,
There wasn't like a trick someone told you about with any part of the shot sequence that like really helped you out. You just were natural.
no, it's the sum of all the parts, I guess. Just finding out what bow works best for me. I don't know. Learning how to make arrows.
There you go. I was waiting for you to say that. He's one of the best. He's probably one of the best arrow makers in the entire MLA.
No.
Duly noted.
No.
And we know you are. And when
No.
you started out, I still have one of your rudimentary arrows that you started out with the spray can on the end. When he made his first batch of like nice wood arrows, I mean that really lit him up. I mean he's a contractor by trade. He's a good woodworker. But when he put all that into arrows, the first couple batches there were rough.
To say the least.
That's how we all
Now
started.
now you wouldn't believe it. I mean he learned from some really good people.
Well, he learned to use sandpaper, and that's very important.
I want to hear what your hurdle was.
I've been sitting here listening to you guys, and I've just concluded that the question is just too deep for me to answer. I have absolutely no idea what it's about.
It's a tough question.
Yeah,
It's
you learn by doing, and we did what we had to do in order to make it work. Whether it was cutting down Osage and splitting it out, whether it was making contact, visiting with people, robbing from Peter to pay Paul. I would find leather and build quivers so that I could sell the quivers and buy parts to build arrows, and then build arrows and until I got enough experience to build a good arrow. And you know, you did what you had to do because you ate, slept, and drank longbows. It just and to surround yourself, birds of a feather flock together, and so you surround yourself with those same individuals that have that same motivation and drive that you have. It's the coolest thing in the world. There are lots of flash in the pans. I do it because it's a cool thing to do today, but it becomes a lifestyle. And as far as being able to answer that, I don't know what it would be. You just did it until you got good at it. And if you didn't get good at it, you played golf. You know, and it's just...
A part of me feels like it might be a trick question because I saw this meme the other day about there's no guitarist believes that they're good at guitar.
I saw that one.
And I'm like, that probably, I mean, I don't know if anyone here considers themselves, oh, they're done, they figured it out. Like, everyone's still figuring it out, so it's like...
You are
I feel
your
like
own worst
from one
critic.
I feel like
to
I've
the
started
next.
over, actually.
This morning I sure did.
It'll humble you real quick. Don, I want to hear what yours is because I have no idea what it could be.
You know, I was thinking about it. I mean, as far as I guess tricks or things, I've once I started, I felt like I shot pretty well actually, just getting started, and I attribute that to the simplicity of just no expectations, you know, and then I got caught into some of the podcasts and I'd listen. Okay, so I need to do that. I need to make this multi-step process, and I understand some people need that. I don't think I need that because the more complicated, when I step up to the target, the more complicated I make it, the more likely I am to screw something up. And it might just because I'm a simpleton, but it's just like, you know what, I gotta step up, I gotta look at the target, and I need to shoot. And if I overthink it, then I'm replaying it. I'm like, okay, which step did I skip, or which one did I shorten, or what? And I just find out, you know, especially, you know, and I know this plays well it's for the gram, right? But if I'm out by myself where I'm not worrying about what other people are thinking, or I need to do this multi-step process or whatever, like most of it's probably when I shoot the best, you know. And on the accomplishment side, you know, I've been fortunate. I've been able to harvest deer, not as often as with a compound bow, but I'm fine with that. You know, my entire family shoots longbow archery. Just 2 weekends ago, I was up north with my family. We were on a turkey hunting trip, and when we weren't hunting, all of us, you know, my son, my daughter, my wife, my daughter-in-law, my daughter's boyfriend, we were all out just stump shooting. And that is so rewarding to be able to do that and just enjoy that time with my family. You know, I'd give all the other stuff up just for that.
Yep.
You know, so it's been a great journey.
That's a great answer. So, last question. Thinking about legacy and, you know, the organization or just personally, what advice or, you know, is there anything you'd have to say to pass on to the next generation as you're passing the torch with longbows and traditional archery? What's the sentiment that you gained that'd be like, take this with you? If you had anything to say.
Just do it and stick with it. Try it and stick with it. If it brings you joy and satisfaction, stick with it, because it will continue to provide that for the rest of your life. That's one of those weird hobbies that does that. That's what I'd say.
What's Grant's sticker say?
Oh, I just ran across that. I have a whole bunch of those. that tradition has.
Tradition is not the worship of
ashes.
of smoke or ashes, but it's the preservation for the fire.
I think they're making this up at this point.
No.
They're screwing it up. I don't know if they're making it up.
It was better than that. It was better than that.
Yeah.
I'll go get one of those stickers. I'm sure I stuck them down there.
It's a great slogan, and it's not, you know, it's I think all of us have felt that way, that, you know, we're basically the guys with a stir stick, and it's very important to us that we teach people not just about it, but why it's important to preserve it. And you have to have people churning the coals to keep the fire going. I'm going to steal one from Floyd. We're a generation away. It takes one generation to forget what this is. That's it. That could be.
You did listen to a few things.
Well,
Good for you.
we are one generation away from extinction.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I
said.
Exactly. So it's important to try to pass out, you know, learn as much as you can, but it's not just learning as much as you can. It's passing on what you've learned with other people. That's half of what the campfire talks are. It's the, you know, sitting down with so-and-so when you're working self bows about, well, hey, you know, I had this happen, and just all that stuff. There are things that our forefathers told somebody about something they figured out, and it's lost forever because it didn't get continued down the line. So you know, each piece of information is a real nugget, and I know that you have to treat it like that. When we get chances to talk to some of these guys like Jerry Keck, and when we were able to talk to Ron LeClaire and Jerry Brown and G. Fred and all that at our venues, and you can sit there and talk, and it's more important to listen to those guys and take in what they're telling you, because you're getting it directly from the horse's mouth. I mean, the stuff that those guys did, saw, and we've really gone through a tough last 5 years.
We've lost some legends really since 2020. Awesome. It's been hard on the org.
You know, sure. I wished I could have sat down with Denny more and heard more of his hunting stories. Going out by himself in a canoe, and you know, that man was a machine that nobody ever knew as far as what kind of woodsmanship he had.
You don't know. Sometimes you don't know you're in the presence of a legend until they're not there anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that true?
Yeah.
That is very, very true.
Yeah.
I think for me, it would be that like I said before, that traditional archery isn't about the equipment, it's about people. And whenever we come to these venues, or even at the club, if I see a person that I don't know, I'll go right up to them and shake their hand and what are you doing here? Kind of thing. You know? And it's just to break the ice. I'd never like to see a person shoot by themselves. Some people want to shoot by themselves.
Some people should shoot by
And
themselves.
they should shoot by themselves. And I got to remember that. But it's about people. So I'm all about shaking their hand and inviting them. Hey, come to lunch. I've made some great friends. Bringing new people into the organization, whether it's Compton or whether it's the MLA or whether it's MTB or MVH, to bring them in, you don't have to babysit them. Birds of a feather again will flock together, and they will make their connections within that organization, and that keeps them there. But they'll form their own circle of friends, and pretty soon they have a group of people that they identify with, and that's who they're hanging out with. You don't have to babysit them, and it's really the coolest thing in the world. It's about people. And that's what I continue to reiterate over and over and over.
And the new folks that come in can tend to have a little more fire in their bellies for it too, because you're looking at people that are potential new blood for council, presidents, and those kind of things, you know.
Yeah. And you know that is actually a hurdle that goes back to your question, because for years I used to go to shoots and not get involved or meet anybody. You know, I'd show up and I was a day tripper and I'd leave with my dad, and one year we took a step forward and we actually decided to, I shook hands with Floyd at a Kalamazoo Expo, and it's like, you really gotta camp to it. You really got to get into it to enjoy it. You get out what you put into it, right? You say, but it's true, and that was a big realization for me. The moment I put a little more effort and got involved, it got that much better. You get that much more out of it. Then you meet people, and it's just all of a sudden you're part of this thing. It's not just you're showing up and doing an activity anymore.
My wife is an awesome example of that, because my first few years it was me coming out for a day or coming out for a couple of overnights, and then coming back, and I'm just on fire about it, and she's getting her talked into coming finally. And now we've got a camper, and
and she's size one.
And she became a council member for a heartbeat, and she's got her own bows now.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about that. You look at Miss Caroline; she never did anything out of doors until she started hanging around me. And Miss Caroline will catch more fish than you catch, and she'll outshoot you, and she'll kill more deer, and she'll just flat embarrass you around the kitchen. She's my hero.
Yep.
And it all has to do with sticking a string.
Yep.
It's just what we do.
Yep.
It becomes a lifestyle. It's what I said before. Yep. It's much different than just a hobby. Mm-hmm. It's a lifestyle. It's what we do and we enjoy.
Next generation.
Yeah, for me, it's trying to figure out how to plant that doggone seed, because I leave these events and just knowing how great of a time I had, and how I see people out here, families, the multiple generations we saw earlier, enjoying themselves, and I'm just like, gosh, how do we reach more people? Like, if you could just get them here, if you could just get them here, and have them invest a little bit of time, to try longbow archery and to meet the people, I know they'd be hooked. And so that's sort of the challenge and the frustration for me is like, we absolutely want to push this on and get kids away from those screens I keep talking about, and there's so much value in this. And I just hope that we're doing it justice and that we're, you know, reaching out to the right people in the right ways. And so, you know, I appreciate you doing this.
Hey, he does.
He's very official.
Well, you build it, and the people will come, and then those people will find some people, and yeah, it's just like it's like a macro level of the individual journey with archery is how that the roots spread out, and I can just express my gratitude for everything your organization does. It's obvious that you know, no one's getting rich or even making a penny on this. Like, people are putting in their time. They're just trying to create an environment that, you know, as Longbow, like, what would I want? And you guys set it up, and it's I feel bad that I haven't taken advantage more of it throughout my life with, you know, my varying sort of distractions. But I love you hearing about, like, yeah, step it up, camp out. I love camping. I got no excuse other than my family's car needs brake right now. But I just it's awesome. And when I think about like the Longbow, what appeals about it and traditional archery is, like, when you compare it with all these modern things, and there's so much that can be taken away just if, like, the civilization or the electricity or something turns off, all of a sudden this thing that's like keeping you going, you got nothing. But with a Longbow, and especially if you know how to make some arrows, it's like that thing can just provide for you, and it's just
In more ways than one.
it doesn't if you lose power, all the more it just, the stock value of a bow goes up a lot. And people should be aware of how important and empowering that is. Even if you never use it for anything other than shooting targets, it imbues you with a sense of, like, I don't know, stability or reassurance.
The confidence is self-sufficiency.
Yep.
So thank you for all you do. Thank you for your time today. I can't wait to start getting out there and doing it myself. And I'm LA forever, baby.
So our challenge to you
Yeah.
is to see you in August
All right.
at Charlton Park with a tent.
All right.
You'll love it. You will. love
I'm
it.
doing
And
it.
bring the family. And
You bring your brother too.
Bring your brother too.
You say in August?
August.
All right.
August what? 10th?
Second
Yeah, we'll
weekend.
we'll set you all up. It's a 4-day event this year, so.
All right.
Yeah,
I'll be
get
there.
you the information.
And if you want to check out the MLA online, it's michiganlongbow.org.
Yeah. Any other shout outs or?
No. Well, thanks to Land O'Lakes for their providing this venue for us for, gosh, how many years have we been here now? Long time. Wonderful
10
place.
plus.
Yeah.
Historic Charlton Park in Hastings too.
Yep.
We're very grateful they're still there doing their thing, and it's a really cool to visit. Any place to visit anyway.
Yep.
Very lot of history there.
All right. Well, you heard it here, folks. Let's get archery going.
Right.
Gotta wait for me this time. Never do it again. You never do it again.